Hi, these comments are for TP. This is Michael from betterTOEFLscores.com. You joined my TOEFL speaking and writing feedback service, and I just read your independent writing practice test. So, wow, I'm going to say that first. So, let's take a look at it. So, the one thing that was impressive. I read through it, and I think that the structure is very coherent. And what's really remarkable is the specific detail you provide in those two body paragraphs. I think is just out of this world. This is exceptionally well written here. So let's take a look at it. So one thing, the question is it always right for governments to ask people to move their businesses and houses to provide space for the constructions of large structures, new roads, new dams, etc. Right? Now check this out. Now, ETS has artificial intelligence. It's called E-Rater, and Microsoft Word also has something that looks at your sentences and vocabulary. So this is what I'm looking at this. So your Flesch Kincaid grade level is 11.1. Your characters per word is 5.1. So I think you need to improve the grade level a little bit. You need to get this up to maybe 13 or 14, and it's more college level. Your vocabulary is quite strong at 5.1 characters. So the easy way to increase the grade level very quickly, given the fact that your vocabulary is already high, is to increase your words per sentence from 18.8 to maybe 25 as an average. And I think that would make a big difference. So some slightly longer sentences in there can also help there. But I still think I believe after having read this, I mean, I'm very, very cautious in my grading. I really am. And I very rarely ever give anybody a high score, but I'm going to have to say this is a 5 for all four reasons here. You addressed the topic and the task very clearly. Your essay is well organized and well developed, using brilliant, appropriate explanations, examples, and details. You have unity, progression, coherence. You have facility in the use of language, even demonstrating syntactic variety, appropriate word choice. But what I think what's really impressive here, it's the idiomaticity of your language use. It's how natural the vocabulary and the lexical chunks that you use. It is just so natural. It's like a native speaker born and reared in the United States with very high educational background wrote this essay. That's what it seems like. So your idiomaticity is just incredible with this. So I think I'm going to put this at 5.0 out of 5, 30 out of 30 points. Should I even dare say it? I'm going to say it. I'm going to say 30 out of 30 points on this thing. Now, I want to read it, and I'll explain to you maybe a few things of what I like about it. Okay, first of all, in the introduction, it is uncommon that for the sake of urban development, governments need to make use of business or housing areas, relocating the workers and residents. However, this does not mean that relocation is inevitable. I believe that it is not always right for governments to ask people to move their businesses and houses to provide space for large structure. Maybe you could get rid of the S here for large structure construction. So this is actually the thesis here, right? Now, if you want to improve the thesis a little bit, which I think you could probably take each of these topics. You say it built by the government may not be necessary, and then it could destroy valuable architecture. So you can take these two ideas here and maybe integrate them into the thesis, and you have a little bit more focus there. That would be my only critique with the introduction. You say, second paragraph, first and foremost, the infrastructure built by the government may not be necessary. Some governments do not understand citizens' needs, so they could make unwise decisions and create useless structures. And this is what really puts your essay into the 5 category is this example here. Let's read it. It says, Hence, forcing people to move their companies and houses is unjustified. Hong Kong is a good case in point. That's idiomasticity. Case in point there. There's not a lot of native speakers that would say that, right? They would just say Hong Kong is a compelling example of this. That's what a lot of people would say. But the way you said it was a kind of a fresh way to say it. It's academic. You say in 2010, the Hong Kong government planned to erect a high-speed railway connecting Hong Kong and mainland China, which was located right in the new territory village. The only problem here is the which was located. This idea kind of modifies the high-speed railway, and it's a little bit far from that now. So you could probably recast that sentence to make the noun clause or the adjective clause be closer to high-speed railway. The residents and the activists voiced their anger by claiming that the railway could only benefit a small minority of economic elites instead of helping most citizens. In fact, there were already several convenient and affordable ways for Hong Kong citizens to travel to China, such as buses, MTR, and trains. In other words, a new railway was unnecessary. This is also very good with your automaticity language use there. You got in other words. As can be seen, dismantling people's homes for something citizens did not need is unreasonable. Therefore, it is not always right for governments to ask people to move for large structure construction. Right? I like how this sentence, it kind of restates the thesis up here. Why did you do that? That's a pretty big paragraph right there. This is bulky. That's 167 words. So you wanted to remind me what your purpose was by restating the thesis there. It's very clever, and it adds to the overall coherence of your writing. Okay, next paragraph. Second, the government could destroy valuable architecture when building new infrastructure. So the thing I like is that the topic sentences that you're using are pretty specific. It could destroy valuable architecture, or it's the infrastructure built may not be necessary. So it's very easy to give examples of those 2 points. So because your topic sentences are very clearly marked, it makes it much easier for you to provide specific details to help illustrate those claims. So you make the claim, you back up the claim with specificity. It results in a very strong argument from your end. The companies or the houses may have historical values, and this is always the argument that people use to oppose the construction of large structures. Take China as an example. 5 years ago, look at this. Again, another specific example here. You have 5 years ago, the Chinese government wanted to promote the economy by establishing more factories in Beijing. As the cultural center in China, Beijing contains many historical sites, and up to 20,000 people still live and work in old style buildings that were constructed in the Qing dynasty. When the government decided to destroy these buildings in order to construct new factories, look at your really good control of your punctuation. You have that introductory dependent clause followed by a comma there. Many officials took issue with this plan by noting that the old buildings have historical and cultural values. If the government destroyed them, it would be a huge cultural loss for all Chinese people. Considering this irreparable consequence, and this is incredible vocabulary here, I love it. Considering this irreparable consequence, the government retracted the plan and protected the valuable buildings inside. From this example, it is clear that asking people to move their companies and houses is not necessarily a good decision. And now is icing on the cake. I don't think that you have to include this, but you did it. So you included a counter argument and you refuted that counter argument. So you said some skeptics might argue that building large structures could enhance the economy, like creating more job opportunities and attracting more visitors. So government should always ask people to move away and provide space. So I like how, so you mention and you're acknowledging opposing views. But then you refute it when you say, yet this argument overlooks that the government could promote the economy and erect new infrastructure using multiple methods. For example, the government could construct new buildings on the abandoned lands in the rural areas. In this way, no people would be required to relocate their companies and homes. Thus, the government's plan of asking people to move is not the only nor the best way to develop the economy. In sum, I think it is not always right for government to ask people to move their businesses and houses to provide space for large structure construction. You can just use this as an adjective, get rid of that plural S there. So this is what you wrote. And if I go back to, and even after reading it in detail there, I'm keeping my score the same. I really am. Effectively addresses the task. Yes. Is well organized and well developed. Excellent. Better than most essays. You spend 100 words on each example in each body paragraph, and you even include a counter argument after that to refute the opposing views. You have displays unity, progression, coherence. I said you could have framed the thesis maybe by incorporating the two key points from the body paragraphs, but still, it can't be denied the topic sentences of paragraph 2 and 3 are clearly marked, and you have relevant, specific examples in those body paragraphs that defend those claims that you made. And this is really one of the best things. You have consistent, I mean consistent facility in the use of language. You have good syntactic variety. The only recommendation I said is you could probably improve the length of your sentences from 21 to no from 18.8 to 25, and that would upgrade the level of your writing to probably 13 or 14. Appropriate word choice, and this is the biggest thing right here. A lot of people overlook this, and this is like lightning in a bottle here. You can't fake it. You have idiomasticity in your writing with both your vocabulary, your lexical chunks, your grammar, your use of transition words, and everything else that you did in that essay. It doesn't sound like a non-native speaker wrote it. It simply doesn't. So congratulations on a brilliantly written, well-organized, well-developed essay. 5.5 out of 5, 30 points out of 30. Now, anybody at YouTube, what do you guys think about this? Do you agree or disagree with my assessment of this student's writing? Put your comments below the video. Yeah, hi TP, this is Michael, and I just listened to your very well written essay here. So let's see how you did with your independent speaking task that you sent me. So it looks like you're using TPO speaking practice. That's fine. And I'm getting ready to listen to your practice test. I have the rubrics here. Now, here is your response.
I definitely agree that children should be required to help with household tasks because this could relieve their parents.
Okay, so I guess the question is, should children be required to do chores around the house, right? Do you agree? I guess the statement is they should be required to do household tasks. And do you agree or disagree with that statement? So, according to your beginning there, you agree with it. Let's hear your
I
response.
definitely agree that children should be required to help with household tasks because this could relieve their parents' burden. Take my personal experience as example. My parents need to go to work and they need to work for up to 10 hours per day.
Okay, so I'm hearing some problems with pacing there. My parents need to work up to 10 hours a day. So I'm not hearing that fluidity that native speakers have. Your writing was perfect, but you just don't have the fluidity of expression with the speaking. This is where you're going to need more practice with what I call pacing, maybe thought groups and blending. So let's keep going.
So afterward, they feel so exhausted that they don't have effort and time to cook for us.
So you say they feel so exhausted that they don't have the time and effort to cook for us. So when you pause, you want to pause before that noun clause. They feel so exhausted that blah blah blah. And then when you pause at the end of that thought group, you want to have a slightly higher inflection in your voice. And then once you read the rest of the sentence, you need to read it without any pauses at all and try to blend those words together into one thought group. But you're not getting that. That's not what you're doing here.
So my brothers and I take up the responsibility to cook.
Use a lot of so, right? And that's fine. But if you overuse a certain type of conjunction, I think there's other words like consequently or therefore, as a result. You could probably use a more formal transition word to help show the connection of those ideas there.
And time to cook for us. So my brothers and I take up the responsibility to cook and even wash the dishes and the clothes for my parents. In this way, my
So we take the responsibility to wash the dishes and the clothes for the rest of the family.
parents could no longer worry about the household.
The parents, what now? Let me check your language use here.
In this way, my parents could no longer worry about the household tasks and take care of us. So being required to help with the household task could relieve parents' burden.
Okay, so I think when I'm looking at this one, this is not a perfect score. So your writing is good. If I were you, when you do your next writing practice test, do an integrated writing test. Let's see how you do there. If you get another 5 out of 5 there, then that tells me that you probably do not need really much writing practice. However, you will need speaking practice. I even think you can benefit maybe from some private lessons, and these would be focused around accent reduction to help you improve your, I think, in maybe 3 areas, maybe your sentence rhythm, your intonation, and your thought groups and blending. I think you need improvements in those 3 areas in order to speak more naturally. So I'm looking at the rubrics here where it says 3, you have with some fluidity of expression, you have some minor difficulties here with not really pronunciation, but intonation and pacing. I'm going to say yes. Definitely problems in those 2 areas. Okay, let's listen to it one more time and that'll give you my final thoughts.
I definitely agree that children should be required to help with household tasks because this could relieve their parents' burden. Take my personal experience as example. My parents need to go to work and they need to work for up to 10 hours per day. So afterward, they feel so exhausted that they don't have effort and time to cook for us. So my brothers and I take up the responsibility to cook and even wash the dishes and the clothes for my parents. In this way, my parents could no longer worry about the household tasks and take care of us. So
I would say in this way, my parents will no longer have to worry about blah, blah, blah.
being required to help with the household task could relieve parents' burden.
Yeah, this is a tough one. This really is. It, I think that your language use is actually fairly strong and your topic development is good, but I think that those delivery issues are going to drag down your score here. I'm going to put you at about between 3.5, maybe between 3 and 3.5. So I'm going to put your score at maybe 23 to 25 points out of 30 on this. If you didn't get 26, I think that speech rater will be the problem with your pronunciation. Speech rater is going to find those problems with your pacing, kind of your blending, grouping, tone, and take off some points as a result of that. Okay? So to help you in my online English course, go over to the pronunciation lessons and I think focus on sentence rhythm. I think that's like 25 through 28, somewhere around there. Sentence rhythm. Also focus on intonation, lessons 36 through 40, and then focus on thought groups and blending, 41 through 44. Those are all areas that you can improve on.